It's finally happening. Five Nights at Freddy's is, at last, coming to Dead by Daylight. A lot of people have been waiting and hoping for this for a while, myself of course included, but what can we actually expect from this chapter? Seeing as we have to wait for a year to find out, all we can do right now is theorize. And theorize I will. As usual, I'll consider what works within the set rules of Dead by Daylight, as well as what's already in the game. As tempting as it is to go ham with the theories, I try to go for what actually has a chance to happen. It's worked so far with the Resident Evil and Alien collabs, so we'll see how accurate I can be this time. Let's get into it. It's uncertain if we'll even get any survivors with this chapter, especially considering that FNAF as a franchise puts its focus on the antagonists, the animatronics, instead of any protagonist. However, if we do get any survivors, I only see one possibility right now, or rather two. Mike and Vanessa, aka Josh Hutcherson and Elizabeth Lale. Blumhouse also commented on the announcement tweet with a heart eyes emoji, which doesn't have to mean anything, but it's interesting as all. Anyway, we obviously need survivors that actually have a visual representation. So the player characters from most of the games wouldn't work as we don't know what they look like, and thus wouldn't be instantly recognizable. Of course there's like Gregory from Security Breach, but kids are a no-go in Dead by Daylight, so that's not gonna happen. That leaves the movie characters as the only iconic protagonists that can work in the game if survivors are included. It could be a killer-only chapter, but then who would the killer be? When you hear the name Five Nights at Freddy's, your mind is instantly drawn to the titular character. However, it seems most people are expecting Springtrap instead, and for good reason. While Freddy is a possibility, Springtrap has a direct physical weapon, a knife. This of course isn't necessary to have, as some killers use a form of magic, or even their hands. But it makes more sense to have Springtrap stab people than Freddy fistfight people. Additionally, he's arguably the big bad, the ultimate villain in the franchise. He's the reason Freddy and the other animatronics are even quote-unquote alive. Not to mention, his design is so creepy. The thought of a decaying body inside that suit is disgusting, and it makes sense for Dead by Daylight to go for the more gory angle. If the chapter is connected to the FNAF movie, this makes even more sense, as Freddy is for the most part a benevolent presence in the movie. Of course, that doesn't mean Freddy himself, or any other animatronic, is impossible. After all, Freddy is the face of the franchise, and it would make sense for them to include the killer that even people who aren't fans will recognize, as Springtrap requires a tiny bit more prior knowledge. I do think Springtrap makes more sense from a gameplay standpoint, but honestly, anything goes here. Let me know in the comments who you think the killer will be, or who you hope it will be. Regardless of who it is, it'd be cool to see a VHS screen effect, similar to what the Doctor has where everything is static. I understand that they removed the old Doctor jump scares due to epilepsy concerns, but if they could make it work somehow, for example make it a setting that you can turn off or on, getting those at a certain stage in the match would be really cool. It fits so well with FNAF after all, and it would help a lot with the atmosphere. You know what would do even more for the atmosphere though? The environment itself, of course. It's possible that we won't get a map for this chapter, but there's definitely options if they want to go that route. The option I'm betting on is, of course, a pizzeria. They have a decent amount of freedom if they want to go with this. There's the venue from the first game, there's the building from the movie, and if they want, they could even make it a hybrid map with part of it outside in a parking lot. This would make sense if they don't want to make the building huge, and I feel like it shouldn't be. I'm going to allow myself to be delusional here, but if we get a map, imagine that instead of hooks, you get placed in animatronic suits. And when you die on the hook, you get spring locked. Behavior, please hire me as your ideal woman. In any case, I'm really hoping we get a map and survivors, but even if it's just a killer, I'll be happy. Maybe a tiny bit disappointed, but still happy. I tend to avoid predicting perks as there are so many possibilities, and so many already exist that I can barely remember them all. But if it's Springtrap, it'd be cool to see something focusing on his resilience and relentlessness. As we all know, he always comes back. Like after being stunned by a pallet, he gains a temporary speed boost, or the survivor who stunned him gets exposed, something like that. The killer being able to use vents to travel around the map would be cool too, as that's a pretty big part of the FNAF gameplay, in certain games at least. Same with power management. This would be mean, but imagine a hex like Ruin, where progress on the exit gates regresses, as a nod to how you need to save your power in the games. As for survivor perks, something related to revealing the killer's location would be reminiscent of the FNAF security cams. Same goes for flashlights, which also play a big role in certain games in the franchise. The two could even be paired, like if you successfully flash a killer, their location is revealed to all survivors for a set amount of time. All in all, there's a lot that can be done here. No matter who the killer is, I'd love to see skins skins for various animatronics. I really hope they use the jump scare mechanic in some way, maybe like how they do for Sadako, where she can jump scare you in the lobby, or how there's a close-up of her face in the Mori. I'm excited to see what we'll get, but for now, all we have are educated guesses. What are yours? Tell me in the comments, I'd love to hear it. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, or even stop by my live streams. You do you. Either way, take care, and I'll see you in the fog next summer.